So children, in the story that we heard last week, the children of Israel were wandering in the wilderness, and they were complaining because they had no food to eat. And they complained to Moses, and Moses talked to the Lord, and the Lord gave them bread from heaven. He gave them the manna. Today, we're going to read the story that comes right after that story about the manna. And in this story, the children of Israel are going to be complaining again. We read, "Then all the congregation of the children of Israel set out on their journey from the wilderness of Sin, according to the commandment of the Lord, and camped in Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore the people contended with Moses and said, 'Give us water that we may drink.' So Moses said to them, 'Why do you contend with me? Why do you tempt the Lord?' And the people thirsted there for water. And the people complained against Moses and said, 'Why is it that you have brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?' So Moses cried out to the Lord, saying, 'What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me.' And the Lord said to Moses, 'Go on before the people, and take with you some of the elders of Israel. Also take in your hand your rod with which you struck the river, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock in Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it that the people may drink.' And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel." Amen. So what were the children of Israel complaining about this time? They were complaining that they had nothing to drink. And that's certainly a big problem. Not having any water is pretty bad. But they blamed Moses. They said to him, "Why did you bring us here to kill us? You're trying to kill us with thirst." They say that kind of thing to Moses a lot. And Moses didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to make water for the people. And so he asked the Lord for help. He said, "What am I going to do?" And the Lord told him, "Take your rod. Go and strike the rock. Strike the rock that's part of the mountain of Horeb, and water will come out of it." And so that's what Moses did. He went, he struck the rock, and water flowed out from it. And that was a miracle that the Lord worked. Of course, you can't normally make water flow out of a rock just by hitting it. I just have this little rock here, but when you're picturing this, picture a bigger rock that was part of a mountain. And probably it was a lot of water that came rushing out of it because there were a lot of people who needed to drink. So one of the things that this story shows us is that the Lord takes care of his people. Over and over, the children of Israel were sure that they were going to die, but the Lord kept on giving them what they needed. And something kind of like that can happen with us. Sometimes we're sure that things are going to be terrible, but the Lord is able to show us that actually he can take care of us. Actually, he's strong enough to make things work out okay. That's part of what this story is telling us, just that the Lord is going to take care of us. But there is more that we can learn from this story. And to help us understand this story a little better, let's think a little bit about what we know about rocks and water. So I have some of each of these things, a rock and water. What do you know about rocks? What are rocks like? Rocks are hard. They're heavy. Can you put them inside your bodies? Can you eat them or drink them? I mean, maybe you could try, but don't. It's not a good idea. It wouldn't do anything good for you. You can't really make anything good come out of a rock. And what about water? What's water like? This water is very clear. It's sparkling a little bit in the light that's coming in here. And can you put this water into your body? Of course you can. And really, we have to. We have to drink water or else we die. So water is something that we can use to help our bodies. Rock, not so much. And both of these things, rock and water, are symbols for the way that the Lord's truth or the teachings of the Lord's word sometimes feel. Sometimes the Lord's teachings feel like a rock. We hear them and we say, that's hard. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how that's going to help me. How do I make that part of my life? And what the Lord wants to do is change that truth that feels like a rock into truth that feels like water. He wants us to hear his teachings and say, I see that. That's clear. And he wants us to feel like it's useful, something we can drink in, make part of our lives, part of ourselves. And in the story, the way that the rock was changed into water was that Moses struck it with his staff. And it says that he struck it, which means that he hit it. He hit it with some force. He didn't go and poke it. He didn't tap it with his staff. He hit it. And what that's saying to us is that the Lord wants us to go to the Word, to go to his teachings with some strength. He doesn't want us to look at them and say, oh, that's hard. That doesn't make sense. He wants us to approach the Word and really try to understand. To say, Lord, show me. I want to use this. I want this truth to be helpful. Help me see. That's like going to the Word with strength, with power. And when we do that, especially if we're willing to be persistent and go back to the Word over and over saying, Lord, please show me, then the Lord is able to change that teaching that feels like a rock into a teaching that feels like water. Then we are able to understand how he wants us to live. Amen. Let us